First up, let's talk some rugby with Justin Marshall. Nice to have him on the show this afternoon. Good afternoon to you, Justin.
Yeah, good afternoon to you, Telf, and good afternoon to everybody tuning in. And I'll tell you what, mate, given that I've been out of the country for about 5 or 6 days, it was really nice just sitting back, listening to you regale what's happening in all the sport while I've been away. So now I feel really up to date, which is brilliant.
Well, okay. The one thing I didn't mention, actually I should have, is that also we're going to speak to a rugby writer from the Times of London, the London Times, no less, Chris Jones, and he is quite a good mate, and I suppose media people don't like to be described as good mates of players, but he has a pretty good relationship with John Mitchell. And now John Mitchell has just been appointed today as coach of the English women's rugby team. The age of 59. I think I'm right in saying he's never coached women's rugby at any level before, and so I'm sure he's getting well paid for the job, probably not as much as the Eddie Jones of this world get for the men. But how difficult do you think it would be, Justin, for a guy like John Mitchell, at 59, with a vast experience of coaching internationally, suddenly to find himself responsible for the second-ranked team in the world in women's rugby?
Yeah, obviously it'll take some adjustment. No, there's no doubt about the fact that there are certain dynamics between the two games, and they are two different style of game, the men's game and the women's game, but that they have different physicality about them, different speed, different breakdown speed. So what you need to do is surround yourself with people that have been in that environment before, that they understand the pace, the tempo and the physicality, and how hard you can push the players. Like, you can't push some of the women players physically as hard, obviously, as what you can the men, just because that's just common dynamics and strength. So, what Mitch will have to do is kind of get his head around the fact that he'll have to make that mindset change himself, where his expectation levels of what, a male would perform in the gym, or what a male would perform in a fitness test or a speed test, would probably be quite different. So he's got to try and get his head around that, and then adjust to the skill set and the strengths of where the women are slightly better in the other areas that the men aren't. And I would imagine one of those would probably be flexibility. It certainly would have been in my day, that's for sure. So, yeah, lots of those things. But, yeah, I've always found that when you have to make those moves that are reasonably significant into areas you haven't been before, it's about getting the right people around you to make sure that the skill set that which he very well is equipped in, which is he's a very good coach both defensively and offensively, to have people around him that enables his tools to be able to work as well.
The other aspect of the job, of course, is the politics here, and I suspect that he might be under some pressure to include into his assistants a leading female rugby coach in Britain. Now, you obviously know John Mitchell a lot better than I do, but my impressions of Mitchell have always been, I've always got on well with the guy, is that he's not necessarily a consensus guy. He's his own man with his own opinions, and you go along with Mitchell or you don't work with him. Would that be a fair summary?
That would be a fair summary. You've actually done a really good job at basically, I guess, giving everybody an idea of the personality of Mitch. Is very, I would call it very strong-willed, and he's got a very strong mindset in the way that he wants to do things. I guess time changes, and time to a certain degree does mellow people, and obviously I think because he's coached so many different variations of sides and at different intensity, under different pressures, he's probably learnt a lot from the time that I played with Mitch, and then equally then he coached me with the All Blacks. His personality and the way that he coached didn't change a great deal from player to coach when he was coaching me. But I guess when you've been, coaching the England rugby team, you've coached Super Rugby teams in South Africa and in Australia, you've got a much broader aspect. So he could have mellowed a little bit, but when I see that stern look on his face whenever he's coaching, and some of the stories I've heard about his expectations when he was coaching England defensively, yeah, he's still got that niggly little strong-willed nature in his mindset. So, yeah, possibly getting a very strong women's coach who has been there and done that as well, and knows equally about the requirements might help him in that regard.
Sure. Okay, let's get back to some rugby here within our country over the last week. Quite a few things happening.